Campaign trail quiet, not so the other issues around. Joining me now, Sky's political editor Andrew Clennell. Andrew, I'll start with the suspended campaign today. I made the point the last time it was suspended, in my knowledge, 2010. We had the death of a digger in Afghanistan and the funeral was in Australia. Julia Gillard and Tony Abbott suspended campaigning on that day to attend the funeral. But it strikes me as a bit bizarre. The PM's all Captain Catholic now. He's shutting down campaigning. And I made the point, in my editorial, he used to call Tony Abbott the mad monk. But now we are recognising the death of the Pope, as we should. But I have to say, even as a Catholic, I think shutting down the campaign is highly irregular.
Yeah, I just don't think it really matters, Peter. It's one day and they're debating tonight, so I don't think it's that big a deal. I think he could have handled it better. He should have rung Dutton and said, do you want to pause? Is that okay? He didn't do that. He announced a pause. He only contacted or texted Peter Dutton, as I reported this afternoon, in relation to the debate and whether that shouldn't go ahead, and then said, oh, it's okay, we'll go ahead with it. But, if you're going to pause a campaign, surely you need the agreement of the other leader, rather than saying I'm pausing my campaign because presumably you don't want a press conference with a bunch of other questions other than the Pope's death. So not ideal, won't affect the result at all, doesn't really matter, they're debating tonight.
Well, we see it for other leaders now, when the head of the Hindu faith or leader of the Church of the United... Well, we did that with the Anglicans, of course, because that was the Queen vested in the head of state as well. I mean, are we going to see this across the board for all faiths now, given how much the left like diversity?
Well, 20% of the electorate's Catholic, so I think it's just sort of probably a different situation.
Is that an admission that it's a political consideration, Andrew?
Well, I don't have to admit anything. I just have my views, Peter. I'm not a politician.
Well, I'm just asking the point. I think it's highly political. Anyway, let's talk about the debate.
Of course it's political. It's an election campaign. Everything's political, I guess.
Right. OK, significant soft vote out there. Tonight's debate, what are you going to be looking for in terms of both performances? And do you think at this stage now, pre-polls obviously opening today, the election now in under 2 weeks' time, can Peter Dutton claw back momentum?
Well, I think he needs to go on the counter-attack. I mean, I think that's what's been lacking. I know Peter Dutton's not very happy with what the Labor ads and Anthony Albanese has been saying and believes that they're blatant lies. And I would say if that's the case, perhaps he should be opening every press conference with a spiel about that before he gets to his policy announcement, because I don't think he's pressed it hard enough publicly. And the two biggest issues, I think, are the $600 billion figure on nuclear power. Now, having said that, I've had two shadows on the last couple of days and they haven't been able to name me what the actual figure is. But even the report that's based on in the advertising, Peter, I just pulled that out. It's in The Guardian. It's from the Smart Energy Council, who are pro-renewables, and they say a maximum of 600 and a minimum potentially of 116 billion. So that is what every press conference, Anthony Albanese, having been on the road with him, is getting up and saying it's $600 billion worth of cuts to pay for nuclear power. And it's all spurious. Now, Peter Dutton needs to attack that. I suspect someone said, oh, you look like too much of a hard man, you shouldn't do that. But how else do you attack, that sort of spurious grounds being used against you? Then there's the urgent care clinics. I had Anne Ruston on Politics Now this afternoon. She's saying we're not cutting any urgent care clinics. In fact, we will announce, and again, they're taking too long to announce this, our own urgent care clinics that perhaps aren't in Labor marginal seats. So I do think in the debate, Peter Dutton needs to come out in the front foot and say, you're lying about this, you're lying about this. People need to know when they come to this election that these advertisements you're seeing are not based on fact, they are based in error and deliberately so. And I think he needs to say it loud and clear for every single day of this election campaign. If he has the view that he is not being fairly treated in terms of this, he needs to enunciate it every day and be more consistent on message. That's what Peter Dutton needs to do. Can he come back? Yes, he can. But the problem is because he's behind, he needs a completely error-free last week. And after the way the campaign's gone with things like Jane Hume's work from home policy and how that went down like a stone, and a couple of other guests, you would have to think that of the campaigns who are going to stuff up in the last week, Peter Dutton's more likely to. He needs an error-free last week. He needs to nail the last week. And I suspect he probably will win this debate tonight, to be honest. But I don't think that's as important as getting that message across for the last week and a half.
And therein goes my point. We know that they'll both go very quiet and respectful on Friday with Anzac Day. So to lose a whole day on the campaign front, even if he was to go to the jugular, as you recommend, and I couldn't agree with you more, he's not doing that, he's not doing it enough. And mate, you don't need to read The Guardian. If you read my column from last week in the Oz, I pull apart that costing from the Smart Energy Council and exactly all the Labor hacks that sit behind it, and the involvement of people like Simon Holmes à Court. I mean, it's a front organisation. It's everywhere on Labor's billboards. It's in the stuff that's in your letterbox, and it's not contested by the Liberals. And the 600 figure is the absolute high end. And there's nowhere in the world where there has been a nuclear system built at that cost. So it's, like this one out of the air. But the Libs are not in the ring. That's my problem with them right now. The Libs are not in the ring.
Look, last night I was watching, Prime Time free to air, Peter. I saw 2 of those $600 billion ads within 3 ads. So for people who don't engage, which is most Australians, thank goodness we live in a country free enough that you don't really have to engage half the time. That's all they see. So, if you're not fighting that, you're going to lose to it. And I just think they've made so many mistakes in this campaign, and this is another one. They need to be on the front foot hitting this hard. He needs to put aside this, you look like the hard man. Just be yourself and tackle what you believe to be the lie. And because, frankly, I don't want to see a situation in this country where people can go into campaigns exaggerating and think they can just get away with it. I know it happens all the time to some extent.
Agreed.
Some of this stuff is next level, and it needs to be called out.
Yeah.
And the only way it's going to be called out is if Peter Dutton keeps saying it over and over again for the next week and a half. And if he doesn't, he's mad.
You're not wrong. We are in agreement. Thank you, Andrew Clennell.